All right, today on the program, J.D. Vance, Vice President J.D. Vance, went into Ole Miss and gave a master class. I don't know of any politician that has ever, or at least in modern times, just gone in and taken open questions from the audience like he did. It was incredible. He made much of Christ. We're going to talk about that here today on the show.
The Paul Harrell Program.
All right, as always, I'm joined by, we've got, for the second day in a row, my co-host, Eric Haynes, is with us. Rob is out again. Eric, welcome back, sir.
Great to be a part of the conversation, sir.
It's always great to have you, and I really appreciate you being with us.
Absolutely.
I think we should just dive right in here. Charlie Kirk doing a master class at this Turning Point USA event, making much of his Christian faith, the Christian founding of our country. It was very, I don't know, it's a breath of fresh air. I just can't think of a politician in my lifetime that has done this. And he even says that. He even says, in his generation, public figures or leaders have tended to not make much of, they kind of keep it private. You may believe something strongly, but you kind of keep it to yourself. But he's not doing that here. Have you seen the entire thing, or have you only seen snippets, Eric?
I've seen snippets.
Okay.
I didn't get a chance to watch the entire event. There was a big thing going on with our family last night. But
yeah,
as you said, J.D. Vance, in honor of Charlie Kirk and with Erica Kirk, did an absolute masterclass last night in doing exactly what made Charlie Kirk so inspirational and so attractive to such a huge audience of young people, and that is he gave the microphone to them, let them ask questions, and just did an incredible job of answering them.
Yeah. Let's start. We've got a bunch of clips to get through today, but let's start with this one.
Thank you so much for being here. My name's Lucy. And I'm Ellie, and we're with the Turning Point chapter for this question.
Thank you, guys.
Yes. Can you tell us how your faith helps you in your role as vice president?
Well, I appreciate that. That is a very good question, and this is another way in which Charlie has affected my life. I would say that I grew up, again, in a generation where even if people had very deep personal faith, they didn't talk about their faith a whole lot. And I grew up in a country where you just didn't hear political leaders talk about their faith. But the reason why I try to be the best husband I can be, the best father I can be, the reason why I care so much about all the issues that we're going to talk about is because I believe that I've been placed in this position for a brief period of time to do the most amount of good for God and for the country that I love so much. And that's the most important way that my faith influences me, is we all get a limited opportunity to make a difference. And if you believe as we believe, you believe that God, you believe that Jesus Christ has a plan. And sometimes we don't understand that plan. By the way, one way I don't understand that plan is why my friend lost his life 6 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I get pissed off about that. But what I remind myself is that there is a deeper rhythm, that Jesus Christ is the author of the fate of human history. Wow. And we are charged to do everything that we can to effectuate that vision, to make our country a more virtuous place, a more prosperous place where people can raise a family and not be persecuted for their faith, but teach their children their faith. That recognition that all of us have a duty. And I have two very important duties as Vice President of the United States, to the American people and to God, and that's the most important influence my faith has on me.
The Vice President of the United States of America just said that Jesus Christ is the author of all human history.
Amen.
I mean, there's a lot of lies that come out of politicians' mouths. That's the truest thing any politician can ever say. That's the truest thing anybody can ever say. And it came out of the Vice President of the United States. I mean, the other day, Erica, you and I were going back and forth kind of about my propensity to kind of black pill. You're basically, we're not in that. I call myself a black pill bulimic sometime, right? Because I can look at things as things aren't happening fast enough. Things aren't this or that. Can you imagine, I hate to do the whataboutisms, but what about Kamala? What about Joe Biden? It would have never, ever happened in a million years because they're not Christians. Or,
right.
I'll just say that. They're not. It's pretty incredible stuff.
I'm almost embarrassed at myself that for such a big portion of my life, I looked at the founding fathers as, wow, I wish I had the courage to talk about God the way they did, and for him to lead their political and way of thinking and be so bold as they were. And to now see it from our vice president is incredibly motivating. It's incredibly rewarding. And it's all those things we talked about at the end of the program yesterday before we even knew he was going to say stuff like this, was that this is just such an amazing time in America. And there's so many things to be optimistic and positive about. These thousands of young people turning out for these events. I mean, for a Turning Point USA event, this truly is a turning point in our culture. And to have a vice president that's so well-spoken, that's so bold and courageous, just like Charlie Kirk was, and to see him laying out in such a great fashion last night to the kids and to everyone that was there at that event, and all of us who watched snippets and watched it, it's just incredibly rewarding time.
Yeah, I mean, you're not. I mean, growing up as a, I guess, am I a late millennial or I'm an early millennial technically, born in '84. This is why it's just so interesting to me, because we're taught to, like that growing up in the 90s, the 80s, the 90s, you leave that stuff in between the four walls and a roof of a church on Sunday morning.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be neutral. And he even talks about that. He talks about neutrality being essentially a myth. I think this is the next clip. Listen to this.
I want to just make sure that everybody's kind of on the same page here. So if you go back to the First Amendment, it doesn't say separation of church and state. It says Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. But if you go back to the founding time, there were actually a number of states that had formally recognized churches. So there was the Anglican Church of Virginia. That was the official state church of Virginia. Maryland at the time was the only majority Catholic colony, or at least had a significant Catholic representation of the original 13 colonies. There's a lot there. And yes, I do think that what happened is the Supreme Court interpreted Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion to effectively throw the church out of every public space at the federal, state, and local level. I think it was a terrible mistake, and we're still paying for the consequences of it today. But and I think this is your point, if you were to undo that, if you were to get back to a system actually meant by the founders where Congress is not setting up an established religion, but people in their local communities can kind of do whatever it is that they want to do, I think that would be a better system than what we have today. But I think the most important principle that we have got to remember is you do not have to completely kick God out of the public square, which is what we've done in modern America. It's not what the founders wanted. It's not good for the United States of America. And anybody who tells you it's required by the Constitution is lying to you.
Incredible. Vice President of the United States saying what people, that have been considered far right have been saying for a long time. This in the shadow of the left trying to convince us, if they highlight a founding father, they're only going to highlight the ones like Thomas Jefferson that was less religious towards the end of his life. Mm-hmm. And they're saying, see, that was the standard. And they totally ignore the framers, the founders, that were many of them theologians themselves and devout Christians, which is why, like he said, you had the colonies and the states later that still had established religions at the state level, at the local level. It just flies in the face of everything we've been taught, and here he is saying the truth. It's the truth. And right now, honestly, it would feel like if we went back to the way things were as this country was truly founded, it would feel like a revolution.
Yeah.
It would feel like a total revolution.
It is always so important to me to be able to be introspective and to look at our lives and see where we have opportunities to make ourselves better, to make America better. And I realize and have been motivated so much by not only this administration, people like J.D. Vance, but also Charlie Kirk, is that I compartmentalized a big portion of my life into these columns of, well, I'm in the corporate world, so I can't talk about this, and I can't say these things, and I have to be very careful of that separation of all these things. And how refreshing is it, and how motivating is it to hear our vice president talk that way, and to hear those folks talk like they did, to hear Secretary Rubio talk the way he did at Charlie Kirk's memorial service. I mean, it really is motivating for Christians and for everyone who need to be living out Charlie Kirk's mission, which is to speak boldly and courageously about our faith.
Yeah, and the practical effects of what he says, the Supreme Court rules, basically expands what the First Amendment says to not just Congress but anybody. Like your local high school can't have a prayer on a football field, right? That's the implications here. But what are the practical, what are the damages that it's done to us as a nation? Well, it's essentially if you've pushed God out of everything and you don't want to talk about it in public life because you're going to violate the First Amendment's religious, establishment clause, it essentially means that people have no moral compass. Mm-hmm. You're going to have more and more people that don't have a moral compass. And obviously, in the context of salvation, the having a moral compass is not salvific. It's not what saves you, but it certainly can tone down on the violence and the debauchery and the wickedness and the broken families and you name it. I mean, it just goes on and on and on because it's a slippery slope. And we are desperately right now trying to crawl our way back up that slippery slope. Here's Vance talking about liberalism.
I'm thrilled to hear you articulate Christian values on a stage like this and to remind us that things we take for granted and things we value so much have a Christian origin. So thank you for that. I really mean that. However,
so much of liberalism, by the way, so much of the far left is a sort of, if you really pay attention to it, it's a kind of perverted version of Christianity. Like, there's nothing wrong, of course, with focusing on people who are disenfranchised, for example. That's the focus of liberalism. But if you completely separate it from any religious duty, any civic virtue, then that can actually become, for example, an inducement to lawlessness. You can't just have compassion for the criminal, you also have to have justice too, which is why I think that a properly rooted Christian moral order is such an important part of the future of our country. But sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Basically, he just said what I just said way better than the way I said it. Then the next one here is the neutral. This is the clip I was looking about neutrality. Okay, the question he gets is about whether or not public schools should be Christian or put forth a Christian worldview, or whether they should remain, quote, neutral and just teach reading, writing, and arithmetic. And his answer here is, I couldn't agree with it more. The idea of neutrality, hey, we're going to be neutral, we're going to be unbiased, is really not possible, because you're going to worship something. Everybody's going to worship something. Everybody's going to have a value system. There's no way to not have a value system. There's no way to not put that into it, because it shapes not only who you are, but it's going to shape how you interact with people. It's going to shape how you teach people. It all comes from what do you believe about the world. And that's going to come down to, well, what's good and what's evil? Is there really good? Is there really evil? And the answer is yes. Listen to this.
So,
go ahead.
So the school system, do you agree that there should be Christian implementation, or do you think that school system should be neutral and be focused on science, literature, reading, writing, arithmetic?
Well, I reject the idea that anything is purely neutral. Okay, there are, for example, let's take a basic scientific fact, and this is a little spicy. I'm not trying to make this too controversial, but take the basic scientific fact of, can you take a pill to change your biological gender? Okay? Now, that's something that 15 years ago, quite literally, every single scientist in the Western world would have said, absolutely not, that's crazy, and now people will. I think the premise of your question, I don't totally share it, because I don't think perfect neutrality is possible. What is it? You talk about history. Was Christopher Columbus a great explorer, or was he a guy who committed genocide against the native populations? These debates, I'm happy to have them, but I reject the idea that there are truly neutral debates. Anybody who's telling you their view is neutral likely has an agenda to sell you, and I'm at least honest about the fact that I think the Christian foundation of this country is a good thing. Next.
It's interesting. I've heard in terms of a media standpoint, because I think one of the biggest conventions that's used to kind of communicate to people this idea of neutrality is journalism. I'm a journalist, and so I'm going to be unbiased, and maybe that was a thing at some point, but I really don't think so anymore. I actually think the new or the true. This is going to sound hypocritical or contradictory, but if you think about it, it's more transparent. I think the new unbiased journalism is admitting your biases before you report on something,
Yeah.
so that people actually know. Like I'm a Christian, meaning I think this is right and this is wrong. So this is how I'm reporting. I'm reporting on corruption in the government, and it's this is my point of view. This is my perspective, right? I think that, I think that's just more honest at this point. Whereas the media, which are leftists, they donate to leftists, they get to hide behind as a cloak this idea of objectivity when they're not really.
Yeah, and they've been totally exposed now.
Yeah.
We as a society and as a culture, I think we're just onto it now so much. The ratings have shown that, and the the complete turn away from those mainstream media personalities and shows by most people play out that there is not a neutrality, and that you have in so many cases just absolute political hacks saying whatever they want to follow along with one party and everything negative to say about their administration. Mm-hmm. And it's a big reason why so many people have just turned away from mainstream media outlets as a whole.
Yeah. If it comes down to it, and what J.D. Vance is saying here is true, which I think it is, that neutrality isn't really possible, then from a Christian standpoint, you get down to a pretty binary choice. It's either Christian or pagan. Mm-hmm. It's either Christian or it's either good or evil. And I know a lot of people don't like to think like that, but I mean, because I think we've been trained not to, right? We've been trained to, believe that there is neutrality, but believe that there's always another side of the story. Maybe the attorney in all of us, right? But when it comes to something like schools, like, well, what are you gonna? You've got to teach kids. Like, there's no way around it. Like, if you're going to have an education system, you're going to teach reading, writing, and arithmetic, or literature, like all of that. There's going to be moral implications that come up. So based on whose authority, who's deciding that hugging somebody and raping somebody are not the same thing, that those are different things, and one is good potentially and one is not good, is always bad, right? Who decides that?
Yeah.
So this is what's it's like infants, very, very wicked infants have been in charge for a long time, and I'm struck that, again, how quickly things can change, I guess. Where we were last year, to your point from yesterday, versus where we are now, the Vice President of the United States literally just said Jesus Christ is the author of all history, and he's saying, oh, by the way, neutrality is not really something that's achievable because everybody's going to bring their own baggage into a situation.
Not only where were we last year, but where have we been for the last number of decades? I wrote down one of my favorite clips from last night, and one of my favorite quotes from J.D. Vance, from Vice President Vance, was, I want every conservative to remember, it's an important part of my entire political philosophy, speaking about conservatism, is that we cannot be afraid to do something because the left might do it in the future. Yes. The left is already going to do it regardless of whether we do it. That's the key takeaway of the last 40 years. And as someone who is literally in my very early 40s.
Me too.
What's
very early to you?
45.
45, okay.
Yeah, that is spot on.
That's mid-40s, man.
I know. That is so spot on what he said about conservatism and our reluctance to speak boldly and to speak up when we should, and to point things out, because whether we're turning the other cheek or whether we're compartmentalizing or we're trying to take the high road or whatever kind of rationale we want to have to try to make ourselves feel okay for not being as bold as Charlie Kirk, man, are we motivated now, brother.
Yeah, I completely agree. I want to continue this conversation, but before we do, I want to check in with our friend Matt Troy, who is with us right now on the line. Matt, can you hear me, brother? How you doing?
Yes, I can hear you guys. Great show. I'm a fan. Personally.
I appreciate it. So
I get so. Yeah,
the reason that Matt Troy is on right now is because he's going to tell us about the benefits of red light therapy, specifically red light panels, clinical strength red light panels that you can get in your home from Red Vive Health, and the link is redvivehealth.org/Paul. Paul, of course, my name, redvivehealth.org/Paul. Matt Troy, how did you first hear about red light therapy and biophotomodulation, sir?
Yeah, photobiomodulation. It's a very
Sorry.
long word. That's okay. It's the science of how light interacts with our bodies to heal our bodies, and really we're indoors 85% of the time. All the statistics show, roughly, depending on country or city, you're 10-15% in your car, and you're indoors about 80% of the time. Our bodies for thousands of years have been wired to be outdoors. So we're deficient in so many different types of wavelengths of light, but the most important ones are the 4 wavelengths that we designed our specific panel by. We're working on a patent pending for the beam angle and all of our technology, but to get our actual wavelengths into your body and actually do all the wonderful things that red light and near infrared light can do, there's certain power that needs to happen. And so I kind of started, let me back up, I kind of started this company with a doctor and another partner that was very passionate about health and wellness. And the big issue out there is you have so many gimmicks, Amazon, all over the internet, and I owned several of them, and they weren't doing what they said. I'd third-party test them. The power wasn't there. Other companies had third-party tested them. I wanted something that was third-party tested, doctor endorsed. So we started this, and we actually had I met with I'm a MMA fighter, and I fought for years and beat my body up really bad. Had stem cells, PRP for years in my knees, my neck. I've had fusions in my neck. Just been through so much pain, and none of these red light panels were doing kind of what I thought they should. So I met my regenerative medicine doctor. I told him that I wanted to see if we could create a product that would actually be unique, that follows the science. And all the recent studies show certain wavelengths and beam angles. So we sent him to London, met with the top photobiomodulation scientists at the Photobiomodulation Conference in London a couple of years ago, and we designed this product. So we keep it simple. When you go to the website, you'll see we only have like 3 different sizes. We have smaller ones for people that are on tighter budgets and that kind of thing. But we wanted it. We designed, there's 4 wavelengths. Half of the lights are near infrared and half are red. And those 4 wavelengths, I won't get into the details on it, but those 4 wavelengths were based off of all the recent studies and our beam angle. And since using our device and having designing this panel, I've never slept better. I'm 49 years old. I'll be 50 in June. I have perfect vision. I've got, an added bonus was it helps your skin too, which a lot of people have heard that. I didn't really use it for my skin. I was using it for pain and using it for, reducing inflammation and anti-aging and all the healing things that I had. And then it helped my skin on top of it and my eyesight. So it's just, it seems like, and I guess I have to actually, I'm going to say this organically just because, it seems almost like snake oil and people can't just make claims, but it's not intended to treat or cure anything. And individual results may vary. But with that said, we've sold thousands of these. We're in hundreds of doctors' offices across the country, and we offer 60-day money-back guarantee. As long as you keep the packaging, you can actually return it, no questions asked. We've told everybody that, and we've made sure that everybody knows how to use it properly. And if they do, we've had I can count less on one hand of how many returns we've had. And most of the time it's for dumb reasons, like they think that having a pacemaker, it's going to affect their pacemaker or something like that. But we don't argue with people. You can return it. But we've had nobody really return this thing that has said, hey, this did nothing for me. That's why it used to be a 30-day money-back guarantee. With that, we had no returns. We might as well raise it to 60. So we created something based off of, I spent 10 years doing red light and buying different red lights, and I finally have something that I wanted to share with the world. And how could I do it? I could do it through doctors. So we have a network of doctors all across our country that we started this a couple of years ago, and it's just grown rapidly because we have such a good product. Now, I wanted to get it out to consumers directly that didn't have the benefit of actually having one of our affiliate doctors prescribe this. And so you are, Paul, your listeners, we love your show, and you're pretty much the first direct-to-consumer avenue that we've brought this to. And I just want to make sure that when people purchase this, that this isn't like any of our competition where they're selling a red light panel. We want to make sure that people use it and dose it properly because it is medicine. It is a class 2 federally registered, FDA registered clinical medical device. And if you don't, like, let's say, for example, if you're using it and you have clothing on and you're 18 inches away, you're not going to feel any benefits.
Yes.
All of the power and the penetration into the tissue and into your cells is from 6 to 12 inches. I like to be under 6. And you have to have bare skin, and you can't have like sun lotion on and stuff like that. It needs to be bare skin. It'll get into 2 inches deep into your tissues, repair your mitochondria, build collagen, reduce inflammation. The list goes on and on. But
so, I mean, I know it goes on and on because I have one, okay,
Yeah.
and it works. As a matter of fact, normally, so we've got Eric sitting in right now for Rob Spencer. Rob is normally in the chair Eric is. He wasn't able to be on the show today. Last week, he rolled his ankle. He was out running some trails, and he rolled his ankle. Swelled up real bad. And so I said, hey, this is a perfect opportunity to try a Red Vive red light machine. So I loaded mine up in the car, drove it to his house, and he had incredible results with it. Not to mention, I mean, there's an analgesic effect that happens almost immediately when you have something like that, or if you have the pain. But he used it. He used it several times that day, and then he used it the next day, and he was able to walk on it a lot sooner than he otherwise would have. I mean, it was a pretty bad ankle sprain, you know. So we have somebody right here, and I mean, I use it every day. I haven't in the last couple of days because Rob has it. but the point is like if I have back pain, Matt, every time I have a giant a smoker, right? It's probably weighs 1,000 pounds, maybe more, 1/4-inch steel because I do a lot of barbecue on the side. And it's got big golf cart tires, but I've got to move it periodically. Every time, it doesn't matter how I do it. It doesn't matter if I use my legs or whatever. Every time I got to move this thing through my yard, I know I'm going to tweak my back. It just happens every time. The red light is now a staple because I know that if I'll just do red light the day after I smoke or the day I cook some meat, then I'm not going to have near the pain that I normally have. It's just incredible what this stuff does. You talk about sleep; it helps with sleep. And now I've talked to Dr. Desai, I've talked to you before. Speak to what happens when the sun rises and when the sun sets. When the sun rises, you get that red light, and this is the concentrated dose that many of us don't have. Many of us don't see a sunrise or a sunset, and that's why one of the reasons why this is so beneficial.
Our brains are wired to take in light, and we give you the goggles, and we do it kind of just in case people have a propensity for seizures or whatever. But all the studies show, if you guys can use AI, you can look this up. It's great for macular degeneration of the eyes. So I let it go into my eyes for 1 to 2 minutes is what the study shows. And I kind of now if you have to squint, you squint. That's your brain's natural reaction to do that. But I soak it into my retina, into the blood-brain barrier, and there's chemical reactions that take place. We take melatonin to go to sleep, but our bodies can produce its own melatonin based off of there's a chemical reaction from the proper wavelengths of light. When it hits your brain will produce natural melatonin, and you will sleep like a baby. This ring that I have, this is an Oura ring. It measures my sleep. This is real data. It measures my REM and my deep sleep and exactly how I sleep, how long I sleep, everything, and my breathing. And if I don't do my red light before bed, and I also do it at sunrise too, like you said, Paul, you do it at sunrise, at sunset, and then actually, I mean, you can go outside too, but you're going to get, it's like on steroids, getting those wavelengths if you get underneath one of these panels and you do it for 15 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes before you go to bed. And I will tell you this, if you put that red light on your back before you move that, your barbecue or whatever, it increases blood flow and stem cell production peripherally throughout your body within 15 minutes of using it. So you're less likely to get injured. So we have like athletes. We've got the marathon runner that's got the world record for the 50 mile. He uses every day, posts on his Instagram all the time about it, but it prevents injuries. So you can use it before you're moving that barbecue. And I keep one under my desk here, and I actually use it on my back because I don't take pain pills. They make me feel sick and nauseous. Big pharma would just, that they hate this type of device because it's light. You don't have to keep going in and buying more and more pills. You just buy this thing. It's got a 2-year warranty and 100,000 hours on the lights. That means if you use it for 30 minutes a day, it'll last over 10 years. So, this will solve a lot of problems and again, there's results may vary, but I put it on my back and the pain is gone. And I use it on my knee and I use it on anything that's bothering me. And there's actually science that shows that the nerves so when you actually register pain, the nerves that are sending a signal to your brain saying that you're in pain. Well, if the light interacts with those nerves and actually calms those nerves, and over time it'll reduce the pain without even using it, but it'll actually diminish the signal that's being sent to your brain saying, hey, I'm in pain right now. It calms that, and that's why you have an immediate analgesic effect to it. There's a TRPV1 receptors, and there's some science to it that actually we have some information on our site that explains it, but there's a chemical reaction there, but it'll also change the way your brain perceives the pain on the other end. So the signal that's going to the brain and the brain itself perceiving the pain is why you have this immediate relief. And that's why as soon as people get it, you can read all of our reviews, but instantly they know, hey, this is doing something. But over time, if you use it, it actually reduce the inflammation and you won't even be in pain while you're on it. I know I went over by 2 minutes, but I could go on forever with this.
No, I appreciate it. One of the reasons why I'm glad you brought up big pharma, medical industrial complex in general. One of the reasons why I'm excited to continue the partnership with Redvive is because of RFK Jr., the Maha agenda, and just the resistance to change in the medical industry if there is a new technology or something that's going to make somebody's pocketbook lighter. And this is about the health of the viewers, and there are other off-ramps. There is new technology out there that might keep you from having to do surgery, or might keep you from having to, kind of get on the hamster wheel. And I'm constantly now on pain meds. This is incredible technology. It's done incredible things for my household. Again, it just helped Rob. And so 35% off. So that's what you guys are offering. And I thank you for that. This audience, if you use my code Paul, or you just go to redvivehealth.org/Paul, you're going to save 35% off these red light panels. I know you guys also do 0% interest financing that is available. Yep. And again, the 60-day return policy. So use it. And if you hate it, you can send it back. Just make sure you keep the box. But most people don't, because you're going to immediately realize that this is something that needs to be part of your daily routine. So Matt Troy, brother, I appreciate it. And
thank
I hope
you guys.
Yes, sir. I God bless you, and thank you for this great product.
And thank you guys for what you're doing, man. Your show is great, and this shouldn't be political either. This is health, right? So this shouldn't be a right or left issue. They say mind, body, and soul, right? I mean, you guys speak so much about God, and you speak about all the living a good, healthy lifestyle. And everything that Charlie Kirk and all those guys preached yesterday at TPUSA. It's like it starts with your body. Right? It starts with your body, your relationship with God, your relationship with your family. It's all one. It kind of goes together. If your body's in pain, it's really, really difficult to be enjoyable to be around and to be able to thrive in life. So it starts here. And I'm telling you, keep the packaging use it for 60 days. If it doesn't do everything, no questions asked. You can send it back. We don't get returns.
And they can also, if they don't want to do the website, just call 844-RED-VIVE, and you'll speak to somebody, mention my name, Paul. You'll get the discount that way as well. So
great point. Yep.
All right, brother.
Or if they just go there and just type in Paul, you'll get 35% off. That's a special deal.
That sounds good. We appreciate it, Matt Troy. Everybody, we appreciate it. Thank you so much. That was fun. It's always great to talk to Matt. So, I mean, Eric, you're going to get a red light machine, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Putting you on the spot right now.
Wait.
Putting you on the spot. Let's get back to talking about this J.D. Vance and everything that was going on this turning point, because we got so many more things to get to here. The last thing we talked about was the neutrality, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so continuing with the broadcast, this is J.D. Vance talking about the idea of freedom of religion actually being a uniquely Christian concept. Listen to this.
Forcing people to pray. There's a liberal idea out there that I think is wrong, and that's that liberalism is the source of freedom of religion. And actually, if you go back to the original founding documents of the United States of America, if you go back to the Anglo-legal tradition well before there was ever a United States of America, what you find is that freedom of religion is actually a Christian concept. And the reason it's a Christian concept is very simple. Because Christianity, Imago Dei, the idea that we are all made in the image of our Creator, means that we must respect the free will of every single person. Now, part of that is you have a conversation with people. Having free will doesn't mean that you're not allowed to encourage somebody, that you're not allowed to talk to somebody about your faith, that you're not allowed to talk about certain values in school. When our founders talked about freedom of religion, they didn't mean you weren't allowed to say a Christian prayer in a public school, or that you weren't allowed to talk about Jesus Christ in a public forum. They just meant that nobody could force you to profess the Christian faith. That had to come from your own free will. And I believe that, and I think every Christian who I've ever spoken to believes that the source is the Christian, the source of your faith, the Christian understanding must be your own free will. But here's the thing about Christian values.
Well, so he said, we kind of ran out there. I wish I would have pulled a longer version of that. But yeah, he's exactly right. And a lot of the reason, a big part of that freedom of conscience is what he's really talking about here, also came from the idea that America itself at its founding was very much a pan-Protestant country. You had Maryland, for the Catholics, but for the most part it was a pan-Protestant country, and they all knew that they were banding together to do something new and unique, but they wanted to they knew their strength was together, but they also wanted to be able to preserve their individual distinct beliefs, different Protestant, Anglicanism, Presbyterianism, Baptist, that sort of thing. They wanted those distinctions to be legal. They wanted people to be free. Imagine that.
Imagine that. Yeah, what an incredible event. Really, just tie a bow on the whole thing of how motivating and encouraging it is. This shift with young people and the young generation towards conservatism, and the data that's coming out right now is incredibly motivating and showing that this next generation is very, very conservative, and that they are tired of, or they look at the lies and antics of these goofy Democratic politicians, a lot of things that are going on now and that have been going on from Trump deranged syndrome affected folks for a long time, and it's just not attractive to them. And this is nothing personally nothing meant to be a personal insult against those that want to rally and talk bad about his administration, but it's not attractive to them to spend all of your waking moments calling everyone fascists and Nazis and dehumanizing someone of a political party that you disagree with.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. It's not only not attractive, but it's being rejected. Words like racist, bigot, or all of that stuff have less power now than they ever have. And for so long, or sexist or whatever, for so long, I mean, if somebody called you a racist, I mean, it could end your political career.
Right.
Like if you were running for office, you know.
Yeah. And these aren't just brainwashed youth group kids either. This is a whole. These are hundreds of thousands of young people that see these great folks like Charlie Kirk give the microphone to those who want to yell and scream and call names, call everyone fascists and Nazis, and then they get to take an introspective look and a critical look at, is that person even rational, or how unbalanced and how obnoxious is that philosophy? And that is the liberal radical left that they're turning against, and we are blessed that they are.
All right, we've got a few more clips to get through here. Here is more from J.D. Vance, specifically talking about how the fruits of the Christian faith, and he points out that one of them was the fact that the United Kingdom abolished slavery. And that actually goes, give credit to William Wilberforce, who was a Christian, who dedicated his entire political career to trying to end the slave trade. And they did it without a bloody civil war. Listen to this.
Christian values out there that I think that we've just sort of assumed and we've in fact taken for granted. Christian values are the idea that you should respect every single person as an individual, whatever the color of their skin, created in the image of God. That's a Christian concept. And in fact, it was a Christian empire, Great Britain, that abolished slavery to begin with. The idea that we should eliminate child sacrifice. What did the Christian settlers find when they came to the New World? They found a lot of civilizations that were murdering babies in weird religious rituals. It was Christianity that said we don't kill children just because they're somehow inconvenient to people. A lot of the things, human rights, the very idea that human beings have rights, are a Christian concept. And so I'd ask you, my assumption based on the question is that you're skeptical of Christianity, or at least of certain public professions of Christianity. One of my favorite Bible verses is, "By your fruits ye shall know them." And I think that the fruits of the Christian faith are the most moral, the most just, and the most prosperous civilization in history. I make no apologies for believing that Christianity is the pathway to God. I make no apologies for thinking that Christian values are an important foundation of this country, but I'm not going to force you to believe in anything, because that's not what God wants, and that's not what I want either.
This guy's our age. It's crazy. It's like it's weird to me. My whole life, the vice president and president are always much, 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 much older than me. Of course, now I'm 41, you're 45, but this guy's from our generation. It's nuts if you think about it that way, at least from just being totally selfish and being in my own shoes. I just can't believe it.
Well, he's teaching those kids at Ole Miss and those students at Ole Miss and everyone there in attendance that. And it's the same thing I try to teach my children at home. If you don't stand for something, you risk falling for anything. And in the way he presents that is just so encouraging to them and so positive that you've got to stand up for your faith, and you've got to be able to speak boldly in an age where if you don't, you risk a lot of negative consequences. We've lived through those negative consequences now for a number of years.
Yeah.
And we sat on the sidelines. We kind of hoped that we were just the silent majority as the larger part of the glacier underneath the water, and the little part is on top, and that we were turning the other cheek, and we were doing all the things that we were supposed to do as good, honorable Christians that wanted to avoid confrontation. And now we know that we really need to do a better job of speaking more boldly and to teach this next generation to be persuasive.
Yeah.
Trey Gowdy talks about that a lot. I've listened to his podcast a number of times, and it's not just the art of the deal, but the art of persuasion. and really trying to encourage somebody to see the better path and to have open dialogue and open conversations with people. And that's where we need to get to.
Yeah, I also think, because the guy that was I'm not countering your point, really. I'm just saying the guy that was for the open conversations was murdered, right? The guy that was like, hey, let's talk it out is now dead. But that has created the urgency of, okay, well, there's just going to be even more of us speaking a truth or some version of what Charlie stood for. There's going to be slight differences here or there, but on the big things, we agree. And so Charlie's assassination has created, if the left is violent and the left is going to kill you for what you believe, and again, I still have a lot of questions about the narrative behind, who shot Charlie Kirk. I'm just kind of waiting and digesting all the information, but so let's just assume it's a leftist. I mean, for the time being, if that's their play, and then we have the Jack Smith Arctic Frost where they were going to, I think, arrest a bunch of Republicans. They were spying on a bunch of Republicans or Trump Republicans. I mean, it's now to be, the time is now to be more vocal than ever about what you believe.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And that will have a persuasion effect. It really will, because a lot of the left, a lot of the sheep on the left are the way they are because they think it's the winning side. There is a psychological component to, wanting to be part of the in crowd, and that's not everybody on the left. But if the silent majority no longer remains silent, and this upcoming, you're going to have more people following and getting in line and becoming persuaded for their own personal self-interest. And you know what? That's just part of life, and I'm fine with that.
Well, it's what a lot of us hope going into the midterms this next year. Going into that season, is that more people speak up and speak out and speak boldly and courageously to speak about their faith and to encourage and persuade others that disagree with them to at least have a civil conversation and a debate and a balanced debate about the issues. And hopefully that takes us into a season where Republicans, as a Republican, I'm hoping that we pick up even more seats and we become more the majority than we already are, so that we get more done. The last thing I want to see is for Trump's second 2 years to be lame duck years because we sat back and didn't speak up and didn't speak out and didn't encourage Republicans to vote. And
by lame duck, we mean more impeachments and more of this utter nonsense where Adam Schiff is the head of some investigative committee in the Senate, broadcast on CNN 24 hours a day, and it's all just the same, intelligence oligarch-controlled media. I mean, anyway.
Turning over the reins to Hakeem Jeffries and Charles Schumer at this point would just be absolutely nuts.
So here's the immigration question. This is a big one, and it's going to tie into something that's happened right here in Arkansas a couple of days ago. He got a question on immigration, and I think he handled it really well.
I understand your view on illegal immigration is it should be a top priority, strengthening our southern borders and fighting the massive drug trafficking that's taken place while securing jobs for the working class Americans. Also, deporting every single person who's invaded our country illegally, which I 100% agree on. My question to you is, what is your view on legal immigration? Personally, I have a girlfriend who's studying in America off a visa. Our hope is eventually getting a green card. So what is your view on legal immigration? Should we reduce it? Also, what is your plan for a merit-based system?
Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate the question. And look, my honest view is that right now, America, thanks in part to the Biden border invasion, but also thanks in part to a lot of bad immigration policy, right now, we have let in too many immigrants into the United States of America. That is just a fundamental reality. Now, look, legal immigration is complicated because we let in about 1 million legal immigrants into the United States of America every single year, and I think the evidence is pretty clear that a lot of those immigrants are actually undercutting the wages of American workers. It's one of the reasons why the President of the United States, and a lot of us in the administration have encouraged H-1B reform, because if you look at the H-1B visa, what it's supposed to be is that you have a super genius who's studying at an American university, who's working at a great company. You want that super genius to stay in the United States of America and not go somewhere else. What it's actually used to do is hire an accountant at a 50% discount to an American citizen. I don't think that we should be hiring accountants from foreign countries when we've got accountants right here in the United States that would love to work for a good wage. Now, you asked about, I think, your girlfriend, you said, and I obviously don't know the full details about your situation, but my view is, look, there are people who want to come to the United States of America, and some of them, I'm sure, can enrich the United States of America by coming here, but we have got to get our overall numbers way, way down. Too many people have come into the United States of America. I am married to the daughter of immigrants who came to the United States in the 1980s. I do believe that some immigrants, many immigrants do in fact enrich the United States of America, but here's the problem. We don't even know how many illegal aliens we have. We don't even know. The best guess is probably 25, 30 million people. I've heard estimates as high as 50 million. When something like that happens, you've got to allow your own society to cohere a little bit, to build a sense of common identity, for all the newcomers to assimilate, the ones who are going to stay, to assimilate into American culture. Until you do that, you've got to be careful about any additional immigration, in my view. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Really good. Essentially saying, look, we've let way too many people in here. And he's essentially arguing, I think, for an immigration moratorium, both illegal and legal, so that the country can basically recuperate. I'll even use the word heal, or attempt to. I mean, when you've got in North Texas, 90-foot tall statues of monkey gods, Hindu monkey gods being erected, that's not assimilation at all. I mean, I know we could talk about religious freedom or whatever, but you've got entire communities being completely demographically changed, and so yeah, I think he handled that really well.
He did. There are a lot of branches to the illegal immigration problem that the last number of years has caused, and we're seeing that play out in a lot of aspects of, I see it in healthcare all the time. We see it on the roadways. We see it all in a lot of aspects of our lives, and I'm happy that our current administration has taken it seriously, and that we've got to do a reset, and we've got to recalibrate, and we've got to figure out who is here and who needs to go back, and especially the ones, again, as a father raising kids, when I see the mug shots of those that are taking advantage of women and children, my blood boils. Yep. And it's a really, really a frustrating thing, because those folks were put here and let go from prisons. It's like Trump says all the time. There are countries that literally released their prisoners and inmates and lunatic asylum inmates and released them into the U.S., and it's scary.
Yeah, it is. And you mentioned the roadway. This is the headline for the. This is LRHN Cash on YouTube. This is his video title for what we're about to watch. Naked California trucker who can't speak English or read was confronted by Arkansas Highway Patrol, Arkansas police. This was posted 1 day ago on this particular channel. It may have happened before that, but he says he's basically from California. So you're assuming that this guy, he's Asian. He speaks no English, obviously can't read road signs, and has been given a CDL from California. This guy has no business. Apparently, he's been given a CDL based on the broken English. This guy has no business on the road, no business in Arkansas, no business anywhere making our roads less safe. So this is a real-world cost and a potential blood cost of having this unchecked immigration where we've got people, an American should be driving this truck, okay? Like, it's very clear. Let's go ahead and play it, and we'll get your reaction, Eric, on the other side. Watch this.
Yes, sir.
Hello. Good morning.
Yeah, I'm good.
Why are you parked here?
Yeah, I parked here 3 hours.
Why did you park here? You understand English?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah.
Why did you park here?
Yeah.
No good. I'm Officer Eddings, Arkansas Highway Police. I need your driver's license, registration, and insurance for this truck. Is there anybody else in the truck? Is there anybody else in the truck?
My company.
Your company. Okay, you don't understand English. Where's your logbook at?
Is the video now blurred because he is actually naked?
He is naked.
He is naked.
Put you some clothes on. Pants. Put your pants on.
Pants on? What?
Put your pants on. Pants. Put some pants on.
Yeah, okay.
You don't understand English. Okay. What company do you work for?
The company, California.
Your company's called California?
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't understand me. Okay. All right. All right. You see this sign?
Yeah, truck. Over.
What's that sign say?
Pink. Must enter, right?
You tell me. What does it say?
Yeah.
Read. I need you to read that sign.
Yeah, with station. Next red.
Okay. Read it again.
Read again.
Read it again.
Oh, trucks. Over 10. Pink. Must enter. Wait station next red.
What is this word?
Tense.
Tense? No.
No?
No. What is it? What does that sign mean?
What's that mean? 10 things.
What does this sign mean?
Master enter. Master. With station.
Okay, so if you see this sign, what do you do?
Yeah, driver going. Yeah, driver going. Must.
I mean, it goes on from there. Eric Haynes, what do you make of that?
These are the things that keep me up at night as someone who I think this guy's from around the Little Rock area. And I drive down to Little Rock a couple or 3 times a week. And, that's my route that I take to go to the hospitals when I drive from here down to there. And this is what scares me personally. And, it's just such a frustrating thing because you've seen the videos, not obviously not in this one, of some of the horrific crashes that have happened recently with truck drivers that did not understand the road signs, did not understand English, and that were here because of licenses they got as illegal immigrants to have CDL licenses. Some of the licenses even had the name. The name was no name.
Yeah.
We've seen those, and those are real. This is not anything to laugh or joke about. This is really happening. And the people that are impacted by these crashes and these weapons that are coming down at 70 miles an hour with either intoxicated or drivers that cannot read basic road signs, it's horrific. And the families that have already been affected by this are crazy. So then to hear that California was just releasing these licenses, these CDL licenses by the thousands over the last number of years to these drivers, and they're going up and down our interstates and across this country, and it is extremely scary as someone who is constantly driving for work, that this is something that I could just be parked at a stoplight or parked in an intersection or parked somewhere in Little Rock and have one of these guys coming up behind me at full speed, not paying attention, and then this, something terrible could happen. It's wild.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's one thing, and it's terrible where we've let rapists and murderers. We think of people like Lake and Riley into the country. That's just immediate. that's violence, and you're letting third world barbarians into the country under Joe Biden and everything else. But then here's a more subtle way that still can take people's lives, can still take innocent people's lives. It doesn't have to be this way. I would say this is literally what the Interstate Commerce Clause is for. I don't know what the feds are going to have to do to get a handle on what California or these other liberal states are doing when it comes to giving CDLs to people like this, but it's all politics. It's all because of the way they see the worldview, where they want, they don't want to admit that English speaking drivers actually make people more safer. It's just insane.
I don't want to be crass about this situation and unsympathetic to someone trying to make a living, who's come here for a better life legally. But this is obviously not that situation. And I am hoping and praying every day that Secretary Duffy, that the Trump administration, and those in the transportation industry in our country will fix this problem and fix it quickly.
Yeah.
Because thousands and thousands of CDL truck drivers on the road that cannot speak English or read basic road signs, as you see in this situation. This was not a setup. This really happened. And it's a big eye-opening experience. And I remember the first time Secretary Duffy spoke out about this and said that this was going on. I just remember being floored by it and just hoping that, wow, I hope those drivers stay west and stay east. And then I see this video come out.
Right here in the heart of Arkansas.
Right here.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Eric Haynes, I appreciate it, sir. It's been great having you on the show.
Great conversation, bro.
Yeah, can't wait to do it again very soon. Folks, that's all the time that we have for this edition of the Paul Harrell program. I want to shout out to our sponsors. We appreciate New Horizon Real Estate and Gateway Sight and Sound and T-Guard Bail Bonds. Want to make sure to call Cody Powers if you're in any trouble. And then Sherrod Chiropractic. We can't do the show without them. And we really appreciate it. We will see you guys tomorrow. Actually, today's Thursday? No, so we don't do a Friday show. We will see you guys on Monday. Have a great weekend. God bless.